Usually when we talk about personal finance, there is this expectation of clinical precision.
Right, like it is just basic math or something.
Exactly. It is treated like engineering. You log into your bank account, you look at the numbers, you subtract your expenses, and the spreadsheet just points at the bottom line and says, well, there it is. That is your reality. 2 + 2 = 4.
Yeah, if only it were actually that simple.
Right, because then you try to actually manage your money in the real world, and suddenly that perfect spreadsheet just shatters. You find yourself dealing with this financial landscape that is murky and it is stressful, and it is driven almost entirely by emotion.
Which makes sense because personal finance is rarely just about the math. It is behavioral. I mean, it is heavily psychological.
It really is. And that is exactly what we're getting into today on this deep dive. For everyone listening, our mission today is to look at some core principles from Gio Marin's guide, Baby Step 7, From First Dollar to Faithful Legacy, and see how personal finance is not just a math problem to solve.
No, it is actually a spiritual journey. And the philosophy in the source material completely flips the scripts on how modern culture tells us to view wealth.
Because culture tells us, money is a status symbol. Or it's just a way to feed our endless appetites for more stuff.
Yeah, buy more, upgrade this, finance that. But the core premise we are looking at here is that money is a sacred trust. It is a tool designed for spiritual improvement and to be a blessing to others.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because getting to a place of sweeping generosity and spiritual purpose sounds amazing, right? But you have to start somewhere.
You really do.
Because if your bank account is constantly hovering near zero, you cannot exactly fund foreign missions or build real family stability. You have to stop the bleeding first.
You need a literal wall between your family and financial disaster.
Exactly. And that starts with a deceptively simple first step, the $1,000 starter emergency fund.
Right. Saving $1,000 as fast as humanly possible. I mean, we are talking about selling things around the house, picking up extra work, doing whatever it takes to get that cash in the bank immediately.
Think of this $1,000 like a circuit breaker in your house. It is not going to power the whole neighborhood.
No, definitely not.
And it certainly will not survive a direct lightning strike. But it stops a minor overload from burning down your whole financial house.
Like a flat tire.
Right, a flat tire. Or maybe the refrigerator dying on a Tuesday night. It stops you from reaching for the credit card in a moment of panic.
What's fascinating here is that the dollar amount itself is almost irrelevant in the grand scheme of things.
Wait, really? Irrelevant?
Well, I mean, $1,000 does not solve massive life crises. But this step acts as a mirror. Trying to scrape together that initial $1,000 forces you to look honestly at your current habits.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I see what you mean.
You have to admit that whatever rhythm you have been living in is simply not working. It requires a profound mindset shift where you decide to pay yourself first before the budget is completely devoured by everyday expenses. It forces intentionality.
So the $1,000 stops the immediate bleeding. But what happens when you face a real storm? Because $1,000 will not cover the mortgage if you lose your job.
Not even close.
So how do we move from a circuit breaker to an actual fortress?
That is where the fully funded cushion comes in. Baby step 3. Once you have cleared out your consumer debt, you build an emergency fund consisting of 3 to 6 months of living expenses.
Okay.
And the mechanics of this are specific. You park this money in a liquid money market account.
I want to break that down for everyone because liquid money market account sounds like, heavy finance jargon.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean in practice?
Liquid just means you can get to the cash quickly without paying penalties or waiting for something to sell. A money market account is essentially a savings account that earns a little bit more interest, but it usually limits how often you can withdraw money.
So it is there if you need it.
Right. It is easily accessible if you have a genuine emergency, but it is totally separate from your daily checking account. You cannot accidentally spend it on a routine grocery run.
I am going to push back on this, though. 3 to 6 months of expenses could easily be $15,000, $20,000, or even $30,000 for a family.
Easily.
So leaving that much cash sitting in a basic account means it is not really growing. With inflation, it is technically losing purchasing power. Shouldn't we be investing that money in the stock market?
It is the most natural objection, it really is. But you have to look at the purpose of this money. This fully funded cushion is insurance, not an investment.
Insurance.
Exactly. You don't expect your car insurance to yield an 8% return, right? You just expect it to be there when you crash.
That makes perfect sense.
The job of this money is to provide the peace of mind that protects your family from a massive storm. a transmission failure, a sudden job loss, or a medical emergency. When you have half a year of expenses sitting in reserve, you stop having financial crises.
It just becomes an inconvenience.
Right. An unexpected event becomes a mere inconvenience, not a disaster that forces you into crippling debt.
It is the ultimate sleep-at-night money.
Yeah.
And with that cushion in place, you are protected from those emergencies, which means you can finally turn your attention to the biggest wealth destroyer out there.
Credit card trap.
Yes, because the financial industry is fundamentally a massive marketing machine, and its primary product is debt.
Oh, absolutely. They sell credit cards as a convenience or a necessary lifestyle upgrade, or, my favorite, a tool for rewards.
But the reality of those rewards is pretty grim. Credit cards charge an average of 18% interest, and they are engineered to bypass our logical brains. They feel totally painless in the moment. It is just a quick swipe for a casual purchase or an unbudgeted shopping trip. But that painless swipe creates long-term bondage.
Because life happens.
Yeah.
You don't have a plan, the credit card catches the slack, the balance grows, and suddenly you are caught in a cycle where interest is compounding against you every single day.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, the only antidote to that marketing machine is extreme intentionality.
And the mechanism for that intentionality is a written zero-based budget.
Let's explain the mechanics of that. A zero-based budget means your income minus your expenses equals zero. But how does that play out around the kitchen table for a typical family?
Well, it means you give every single dollar a specific assignment before the month even begins. You aren't just reacting to what happens. You are directing the flow of your resources.
So you are telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went.
Exactly. You write down your expected income at the top of the page. Then you list out your tithe, your offerings, your mortgage, your groceries, everything down to the penny until you hit zero.
And what if you have money left over at the bottom?
If you have $50 left over, you have to give it a job. Maybe it goes toward a family vacation or extra giving to a mission project. It means intentional family budgeting and meticulous meal planning at home so you aren't forced to grab expensive takeout out of convenience.
You stop letting life happen to you,
Yeah.
and you start directing it. And once you stop paying 18% interest to a bank, you can actually start using interest to your advantage.
Yes, that is the turning point.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I want to walk through an illustration of compound interest from the source material that absolutely blew my mind. It is the story of Ben and Arthur.
Oh, this is the perfect demonstration of how wealth actually builds.
Let's do the math on this for everyone listening. We have two brothers. Ben starts investing $2,000 a year at age 19. He does this consistently, but only for 8 years.
So just from 19 to 26.
Right. At age 26, he stops completely. He never adds another dime of his own money to that account. So, total out of pocket, Ben invested $16,000.
Keep that number in mind, folks. 16,000.
Now, his brother Arthur waits until age 27 to start. But Arthur invests his $2,000 every single year, from age 27 all the way until age 65.
Let's look at Arthur's commitment. He contributes consistently for 39 years. 39 years times $2,000 means Arthur put in $78,000 of his own money.
Compared to Ben's $16,000.
Right.
But look at the result at retirement. Ben ends up with roughly $700,000 more than Arthur.
It is staggering.
I honestly struggled to wrap my head around this the first time I saw it. Wait, Ben stopped at 26, contributed a fraction of the principal, and still beat his brother by nearly $750,000. How does the math actually support that?
It all comes down to the mechanics of compounding over time. Ben's money had decades of uninterrupted growth. The interest he earned in his 20s started earning its own interest in his 30s.
And then that larger pile earned even more interest in his 40s.
Exactly. It is a snowball rolling down a very long hill. Arthur put in more snow, but his hill was significantly shorter. This raises an important question for anyone trying to build stability. Are you treating wealth building like a sprint or a marathon?
It really makes you realize that time is the heaviest weight on the scale.
It is the most powerful ingredient in the equation. Small daily choices, like skipping the expensive daily coffee or bringing a packed lunch instead of eating out. They might seem insignificant.
But they add up.
Right. When you invest that difference, it compounds into staggering sums over 30 or 40 years.
Okay, but this brings up a very practical reality.
Yeah.
If you aren't using credit cards to buy things you can't afford right now, and you are trying to invest all your extra cash for the long term, how do you pay for larger, legitimate family needs?
Right, the big ticket items.
Yeah. Say you need a reliable family car, or you are saving up for Christian education for your kids. How do you handle those expenses without completely derailing the budget?
This introduces the discipline of debt-free purchasing through sinking funds.
I love this concept. Walk us through how a sinking fund operates.
A sinking fund is elegantly simple. Instead of financing a purchase and paying for it looking backward with a hefty interest rate attached,
Right, paying for the past.
you determine the cost of a future need and you save a set amount of cash each month looking forward. Say you know you will need a $12,000 car a year from now. You open a specific savings envelope or an account, and you sink $1,000 of cash into it every single month.
So when the year is up,
When the year is up, you walk into the dealership and write a check.
mathematically that makes total sense. You completely eliminate the back-charged interest, which can easily run 24% or higher on things like furniture or personal loans.
But the mathematics are actually secondary to the deeper why.
How so?
Sinking funds serve as a vital spiritual safeguard. For families, especially those who start earning higher incomes, this discipline of systematic saving guards against sudden extravagance.
Ah, I see.
When cash is plentiful and there are no boundaries, impulse buying creeps in. You upgrade the car, you buy the new furniture, you expand your lifestyle simply because the money is sitting in your checking account.
Sinking funds force patience.
They create a cooling off period. They keep the family anchored in responsible stewardship rather than impulsive consumerism.
It forces you to maintain the muscle of discipline, even when you technically have the money to be undisciplined. And that discipline sets the stage for the absolute mountaintop of this journey.
Baby step 7.
Yes. What does life look like when you have mastered the budget, avoided debt, and have compound interest working for you over the long haul? You reach the pinnacle.
This is where the financial pressure completely disappears.
Picture this stage for your family. Absolutely zero debt. A completely paid-off home. Your income is no longer consumed by payments to banks or interest to lenders.
It is entirely freed up.
Freed up for 3 priorities: giving, investing, and having fun. And it is incredibly telling that the source material lists giving as priority number 1.
Because giving is the ultimate joy of wealth. When viewed through a biblical lens, generosity is the highest use of money. For believers, the baseline of this generosity is a faithful tithe.
Returning 10% of your increase to the local church.
Right. But the tithe is just the starting line.
It is the floor, not the ceiling.
Exactly. Beyond the tithe, there is an active, intentional search to remember the needy. It involves relieving the afflicted and supporting home and foreign missions to plant the standard of truth in new territories.
That is a beautiful way to put it.
The principle is that if we claim to represent the character of Christ, selfishness just has to be expelled. We should be willing to give every portion of our means that we can spare to uplift others.
So what does this all mean in practice? It means that generosity creates a powerful, multiplying spiritual cycle. When you fund missions, the people who receive that truth and have their lives transformed will eventually, in turn, give of their own means to carry that light to still others.
Your generosity does not end with your initial gift. It becomes a living force.
And while you are practicing this radical generosity, you are also managing the second priority, building generational wealth. Because reaching this stage doesn't mean you stop investing.
No, you continue to maximize tax-advantaged accounts.
Let's briefly explain why those specific accounts are so crucial. Things like a 401k, a Roth IRA, or health savings account.
Well, the mechanics of these accounts give you massive legal shields against taxes. Take a Roth IRA, for example. You invest money that you've already paid taxes on.
Okay.
But the magic happens when it grows. All of that compound interest we talked about with Ben and Arthur. Inside a Roth IRA, that growth is completely tax-free.
That is huge.
When you pull the money out in retirement, you owe the government 0% on the growth.
That is a phenomenal wealth-building tool. And when it comes to expanding your investments into real estate, there is a very strict boundary here in the text. Pay cash only. Never borrow or use debt to purchase investment properties.
Because taking out a mortgage on a rental property brings risk right back into your life.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It introduces the possibility of foreclosure if the market turns or a tenant stops paying. Paying cash keeps the peace you have built completely intact.
And to manage this growing wealth, you need to surround yourself with a trusted financial advisor. But the text is clear. You are looking for someone with the heart of a teacher or a coach.
Not a salesman. You want an advisor who explains the why and empowers you to make your own decisions, rather than someone who just pushes complicated financial products just to get a commission.
Which gives you the freedom to enjoy the third priority, guilt-free fun.
My favorite part?
Right. You have sacrificed. You have meticulously meal planned. You've skipped the daily luxuries. You have delayed gratification for years. Now you get to enjoy the harvest.
You want to take the family on a special vacation. Do it.
But the key is you do it entirely debt-free and within that intentional monthly budget. Enjoying the fruit of your discipline without a shred of guilt is one of the great rewards of this journey.
But that concept of guilt is something many believers grapple with when they finally reach this level of abundance.
Oh, for sure. We hear warnings about the dangers of wealth all the time. It creates a tension. How do we reconcile financial abundance with Christian humility?
And how do we ensure this wealth doesn't become a stumbling block for us or our families?
Well, there is an incredible analogy in the text that completely reframes this tension. Money is morally neutral. It is exactly like a brick.
A brick.
Yes, you can use a brick to smash a window, cause destruction, and hurt people. Or you can use that exact same brick to build a hospital. The Bible warns that the love of money is the root of all evil, but the money itself is not a curse.
What's fascinating here is how that perspective elevates the purpose of wealth. Money is of high value because when it is reverenced as a sacred trust, it becomes a powerful tool.
A tool for what?
For the salvation of souls and for blessing those who are in genuine need. We can look at the book of Ecclesiastes, specifically chapter 5, which notes that enjoying the wealth God has given us is a fitting gift from Him.
So when you look through the lens of stewardship, the guilt fades away. You realize you are holding a hospital building brick.
Exactly. But a tool that powerful needs immense protection. You don't just leave it unguarded for anyone to take or for a sudden tragedy to wipe out.
So true. Once you reach this stage, you have a profound responsibility to protect the legacy. This requires very specific legal shields.
First, you need an umbrella insurance policy.
Let's explain how that works, because most people think their home and auto insurance is enough.
Your standard home or auto policies have hard limits. Maybe they cover up to $300,000 in liability.
Okay.
But if you are in a terrible car accident, or someone is severely injured on your property and you are sued for $2 million, your standard insurance pays its limit and then walks away,
Leaving you on the hook for the rest.
The courts can then come after your paid-off house and your retirement accounts to satisfy the rest of the judgment. An umbrella policy sits on top of your other insurance.
So if your auto policy taps out,
The umbrella opens up and covers the remaining millions, protecting your actual wealth from being wiped out by a single lawsuit.
that is absolutely essential. And the second shield kicks in later in life, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Once you reach age 60, you need to add long-term care insurance to the mix. Statistically, the cost of assisted living or nursing home care is one of the fastest ways to drain a multi-million-dollar estate.
I've seen that happen to families. It is devastating.
Long-term care insurance transfers that massive financial risk to an insurance company. And finally, you need a legally secure will, or in many cases, a trust, so that your money continues to bless your family and your chosen ministries exactly as you intend after you are gone.
But protecting the legacy isn't just about drafting legal documents. It is deeply tied to the people inheriting it. How you train your children is paramount.
And there's a very strong warning about this in the material. Do not give your kids a free allowance.
Not at all.
Instead, use a commission system. Children earn money for completing specific, age-appropriate tasks around the house.
I love this because it completely changes the dynamic in the household. It mimics the real world.
It does. We live in a culture that is absolutely saturated with entitlement. Giving children a commission rather than an allowance teaches them the biblical value of hard work.
It connects effort to reward.
It brings the entire family into the rhythm of stewardship. When the youngest to the oldest are involved in earning their own money, saving for their own sinking funds, and paying their own tithe, it trains the next generation to manage resources with faithfulness.
It prevents the wealth you've built from becoming a curse that ruins your children's character. It is about instilling character right alongside the cash. And honestly, looking back at everything we have unpacked today is an incredible journey. We started with the humble $1,000 mirror, that uncomfortable moment where you have to look at your habits, stop the immediate bleeding, and decide to pay yourself first.
We walk through breaking the 18% credit card trap by using an intentional, zero-based budget to direct your life.
We saw the mathematical explosion of compound interest with Ben and Arthur, and the elegance of sinking funds to protect your peace and prevent sudden extravagance.
All of those discipline steps lead straight to the sweeping freedom of baby step 7, a life marked by absolute peace, a completely paid-off home, and radical generosity with the church and the world.
It transforms money from a source of endless anxiety into a sacred trust.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We talked about how a budget is the ultimate reflection of your intentionality. So ask yourself this. If a complete stranger found a copy of your zero-based budget and your bank statements today without knowing a single other thing about you, what would they assume your deepest values are?
Wow. That brings us right back to the beginning, doesn't it? Because the spreadsheet doesn't just show the math, it shows your heart. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We encourage you to take that first step of intentional stewardship today. We'll see you next time.